Welcome to today's hobby video, where we look at these American Indians that I have completed for my American War of Independence collection. They are all 28mm Perry miniatures metal figures, and they have been somewhat of a painful labour of love. I think I started painting them maybe 3 months ago, and initially worked on only the skin tones, which took a couple of weeks in between other things. And then actually they just sat to one side because I was a bit both busy at work and burnt out by that experience for about 6 weeks, until I finally came back round to them, and with a couple of hours here and there have eventually sort of ground them out to the finish line into a state where I'm by and large pleased with them. So we've got 2 groups of 7 here, so that's 2 groups of 6 with 2 additional leaders, because I'll probably use them for sharp practice, but I can sub the leaders in and out. I also have a couple of other character figures, one of which I might paint up so that I can field them as a big group with a single leader potentially. But for now, these work as a couple of little skirmishing parties of warriors. They've all got muskets. I didn't buy any of the bow-armed American Indian warrior packs from Perry, so they're all musket armed for now. And yeah, I'd say I've really enjoyed painting them. I mean, it's been a little bit of a deliberate exercise in pushing myself, because I've never painted anything with this much like exposed flesh tone that requires painting, largely because I feared doing that and didn't know really how I'd go about it. But these have come out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with them. There are things I might improve about them and things I'm not hugely happy with. But yeah, otherwise pretty pleased. So I'll take a closer look at some of the groups. As you can see here, I've sort of split them roughly into 2 groups. One of the biggest time-consuming factors was deciding on how much independence and variation I wanted to have between the figures, in terms of, are they going to have different legging colours, binding colours, strap colours, the war paint markings that I put on, the little individual touches on the feathers and so forth. And all of that made it a more time-consuming process. But I did try to, for example, separate them into batches. So where, for example, they had predominantly red leggings or other pieces of clothing, I put them in a group and I'll paint all the red bits now. And I recommend, if you're going to do that with very, very detailed and intricate miniatures with patterns and markings and so on, you try and rationalize a little bit if you want to. I mean, I could have potentially gone a lot harder on some of the details. I have, for example, chosen deliberately not to put any decoration onto any of the like bags or satchels that they're carrying, just because, frankly, I might have gone a little bit over the edge had I tried to do that, and painting all the different bits of war paint and the dots on the leggings and little stripes on the clothing and so on. All of that was pretty time consuming as it was. So I'm fairly happy that I both have put in a decent amount of detail work to them, and also haven't gone overboard necessarily in a way that would just require an endless process of adding more and more and more little bits and pieces. And that would be my overall advice and experience from having done this, which is that, yeah, you can go a lot into detail, but you can try rationalizing it. So, okay, these ones are going to have blue pieces in these areas of the miniatures, not necessarily the same pieces every time. So, for example, you can see here at the front, there's a couple of guys that have got blue loincloths on, but they've got different legging colours on. And so, like I say, you then have to sort of split into batch painting the details to make that work. And then thinking, okay, the sort of binding straps around the leggings, let's try and standardise on a couple of ways of doing those, rather than making them all endlessly different, because that's just creating yet more time-consuming work for yourself. And this is all only, if you don't want to do that, you could make as much work for yourself as you like, but I just didn't want this process to go on forever. So yeah, trying to break it down into areas of colour that you're going to batch paint, I think works pretty well for something that's detailed. So you can create variation and difference and intricacy between the miniatures, but trying to keep the amount of time that consumes down as far as possible. So yeah, that's pretty much it. They've taken a while. The basing was the most straightforward bit. I did that in the course of an afternoon. And I think I am pretty pleased with them. And they're certainly very different from anything I've painted before within this period or other periods. And I probably won't paint any more for a little bit of time. I don't think I need any more for the collection anyway. Like I say, I might add a couple of extra character figures, but other than that, yeah, my tips are batch paint them, batch paint even details where possible. So try and standardize between the different miniatures, and make it easy for yourself as far as possible without losing that opportunity to put in cool little details and bits of variation. And yeah, I hope these bring you some inspiration in painting your own miniatures of this type, if you've got any, whether it's for different periods, in terms of painting different skin tones, because one of the things I tried quite heavily to concentrate on here was to make the miniatures distinct in their skin tone from that I normally paint for sort of Western European skin tones, but not gratuitously different, because my impression of it is that actually you could make them look too dark, for example, compared to the Western European sort of skin tones that I normally paint. But anyway, yeah, I hope you've enjoyed having a look at these, and then they bring you some inspiration. And if you've got any other questions about how I went about it, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer those questions. I do find sometimes that whilst I'll try and explain broadly in a video like this, but as succinctly as possible, I'm not necessarily going to communicate everything everybody wants to know, but I've got more time and sort of mental space to give you a considered answer in the comments, perhaps. So let me know, and in the meantime, happy hobbying.